Karbala is the home to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, as well as Imam Hussein TV. Millions come to Karbala every year, and we bring Karbala to millions. Imam Hussein Media Group is a crowd-funded project that does not generate any sales or profits. That's right, we do not make any money or profit, or solely rely on your generous donations to help bring you Karbala. Imam Hussein Media Group is looking for flag bearers, donors and supporters to help. We are looking for 1,000 people to donate just £14 a month in honor of the 14 infallibles. With the help of our 1,000 partners, Imam Hussein TV3 can maintain its monthly costs as well as continuing to spread this sacred message. So many of our viewers depend on us in order to learn, understand and connect with the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. It is the duty of everyone to facilitate and finance Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to enter everyone's home. Become a partner now by going on www.imamhussein3.tv/donate, or alternatively call us or WhatsApp us on +44 939 917 163 or +964 774 067 1837. Imam Hussein TV, your gateway to Karbala.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. God is beautiful and He loves beauty. And the same can be said about His creations. Each and every one of us wants to look as beautiful as is possible. Every human being at one stage or another in their life begins to consider possible surgeries that may enhance their beauty. This is a reality that we see around the world. I don't think the brothers and sisters would disagree with me that one stage or another in our lives we begin to think about whether there are any surgeries that we may undertake that may give us some of our youth back. I miss my youth. I want to go back to my youth. Some people, of course, they age wonderfully. Others, not so. And within the human being, there is a certain amount of vanity that does exist, without taking it onto a prohibited level. There is a certain amount of ego that exists as well. And naturally, each and every one of us is happy when someone tells you, you're shining, you look beautiful. We have come up, of course, with quotes to make sure that if we don't really look that good, there are quotes that back us up. For example, we don't mind when someone says, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We say, okay, no problem. But for some reason, that never applies to David Beckham. Nor does that ever apply to Brad Pitt. Nor does that ever apply to Cristiano Ronaldo. Because there are many in the world who look at them and look at the exterior physique and want to be like them. A person wants to have, for example, certain looks that they may have in the world of fashion, but also physically. People look at the jaw of a human. People look at the cheeks of a human. People look at the nose of a human. People look at the hair of a human. People look at the eyes of a human. People look at other parts of the body of a fellow human being, and you want that look. And so, in wanting that look, you see that it's available now easily. If you're someone who, for example, does not have lips which are too clear for everyone to see, and you've always wanted them, for example, filled or plumped, then you'll actually have surgeries which are available today, where a person can have a particular filler even in their nose. The person may see, for example, that the shape of their nose. Guys like us who've played football from a young age, we know very well that it's gone one way and the other 3, 4, 5 times. There's been elbows all over a corner, and that nose has just gone one side and the other. And so you ask yourself the question that if it's available, why don't I go for this surgery? And so now we live in a society, whether a person wants to look at these things negatively or not, it depends on the context. Because it's easy for a person to say, all I care about is the internal. And that Islam only wants to focus on your internal. Islam doesn't really want to focus on how you look externally. But then why is it whenever we look at pictures attributed to some artists who claim that the imams looked like this, although most of them, when they draw them, they virtually look all the same. But there's this conception that this is beauty. Of course, many of us, when we go to Karbala or Najaf and we see these pictures, we know that these aren't real. And nor do many of us even keep them at home out of respect for our imams. But there's this conception even of beauty when it comes to our imams, that a person imagines the physical appearance of the imam. So if religion has nothing to do about the physical appearance, then why is it whenever they talk about Imam Ali alayhi salam, there was a particular discussion of how he looked? When they talk about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, there's a discussion about how he looked. I think also we cannot forget that there are certain people who are born or may face a particular challenge with their looks at one stage or another in their life. You know, when you read about cleft lip, you find some people couldn't even smile. You've seen children who sometimes there's a problem that they face where they may not smile like others. There might be someone who even has a birthmark in the middle of their face, for example. There might be someone else who may have a particular problem in another part of their body which they don't want the whole world to necessarily find out about. And so you think about it and you ask yourself the question that, put aside those who are going towards the direction of purely cosmetic because they want to beautify themselves. How about those who face a challenge with the way they look? When it comes to, for example, the need for a corrective procedure for what one may call a defect or a particular aberration. Now, on this note, I recognize that we all have our different challenges. And so when you do have a family member who has a particular defect or aberration or whatever the term is, because with some of these terms, you also don't want anyone to be hurt. The reality is it's at that moment that you see somebody who does have a particular physical problem, but their heart is sometimes much better than the one who's good looking but extremely arrogant. But whether you look at the most good looking people in the world or not, you still have it within yourself when you wake up in the morning to always try and look your best. You recognize that your Lord created you in the best of molds. But you wouldn't mind, for example, having a surgery if my, for example, stomach is so large in the eyes of some, in the eyes of myself even, that people look at me and they may not say it, but I feel that, you know what, I'm overweight. There is a way to lose that weight. There are exercises to lose that weight. But a person says, Sayyidina, look, as many exercises I try, if science has reached a stage where we're able to have this stomach, for example, operation, a particular tucking in, if after I've given birth, there are some ladies whose husbands can be baffling, by the way. He'll say to her, I like that type of lady. in that type of body shape, but when she wants to go and have surgery, but you can't have it. Okay, so why do you keep mentioning that? But when your wife wants to have surgery, she can't have that surgery. For what reason? So you'll have people who begin to ask the question that if I want an enhancement even to my breasts, for example, there are some who may be born with a particular size of breasts which is seen in many societies as being a size which is, for example, seen as small. Although, you know, at the end of the day, people may turn around and say, well, that is what I prefer. There might be others who say, I really don't care about the size of the breasts. I care about my backside, and I want that filled. And of course, we live in a Kardashian world. And in that world, it's all about the way you look. But it's unfair also to blame it on a Kardashian world when the reality is that you'll find countries with majority Muslim communities are the ones who have the most surgeries. Iran, for example, was known in its time for having the most nose jobs. But even the nose job now has become second fiddle in Iran. Now it's become a case of, well, I want my breasts enhanced, and I want my backside enhanced, and I want my lips done. And before you know it, you're walking around in places like Iran or places like Lebanon. Not only do you think, well, I only thought this was, for example, in Brazil or in, you know, California, but you're also looking, and everyone virtually looks the same sometimes. It's like there's one particular look. I remember in Lebanon there was a particular time where the one look was a Haifa Wahbi look. Don't ask me how I know these things. You can research them on Google. And there's a particular look which everybody wants. There's that particular person, and that's beauty. And I want to look like that. People were coming from Kuwait, and people were coming from Qatar, and people were coming, you know. And then you'll see, for example, someone wanting a look of a Turkish actor or actress. I think there was a Turkish actress who everybody wanted to look like. So even in the Muslim world, this issue of plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery becomes even more important, because on the one hand, you've got the issue of defect, challenge, corrective, and on the other hand, you have beauty. And so a person straight away begins to ask, well, what does God think? And we know very well we are in a bit of a predicament, because I don't think there was much plastic surgery going on in, for example, northwest Medina. And there wasn't much plastic surgery going on in Mecca. And here we are discussing Botox, and we're discussing fillers. And we're discussing, for example, stomach, and we're discussing hair, and we're discussing, you know, lips, and so on and so forth. And so what does the Quran say about this? Because we face a dilemma with the first series of ayat we're going to look at. What's that dilemma? Because we love to always say God created the human being in the best of molds. And this is a particular dilemma, not so much for the beautifying aspect, but for the corrective surgery type things. Because it baffles you when you're looking at the Quran. My dear viewers, you could go to a surah which all of you have memorized in the Quran. If you go to Surah Teen, for example. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa Teeni wa Zaytun. Go to it. Why not? Why not have a look at it? We hardly ever look at it because we memorized it. But if you look in Surah Teen is what? 95? It is 95, isn't it? Surah Teen. Go to Surah 95 of the Holy Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa Teeni wa Zaytun. Wa Tur Sinin, by the fig and the olive, and Mount Sinai. Wa hadha al-balad al-amin. And by this city which is declared as being secure, of course, because of your presence in the city. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We created man in the best structure. Now here, a person might turn around and say, Sayyidina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying in the Quran that we created you in the best of structures. Number one, why is this person facing this challenge, therefore, with their lips, or with their eyes, or with their whole face? I've seen people's whole face with a particular tumor emerging from it. Or they may turn around and say, Sayyidina, then how can a person change what Allah has created? Perfect. But we know, خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. If you look at the next ayah, what does it say? ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. then what? Then we see this human being go down to what? To the low. No, the lowest. Meaning, if a person, for example, is not, you've got a question, God says, I create man best most, then he went lowest. Lowest in what? In the look? No, in the character. The human being, what he was given of faculties, he could be higher than the angels. Like Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi in that Balad al-Amin before this ayah. But they can also go down to the lowest of the low. Okay, so that we agree with. Then someone else says, no, I see another ayah in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we created you looking the best, in the best of forms. Therefore, how could you change what Allah has created in the best of forms? Which ayah will they show me, for example? Surah 82, another surah which I'm sure many of you have memorized from Juz' Amma. Surah 82, verse number 6. Infitar must be 82. If I'm not mistaken, verse number 6. Oh God, is it? Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhal insanu ma gharraka bi rabbika al-kareem. Oh man, what is it that has beguiled you from your Lord, the most gracious? Alladhi khalaqaka fasawwaka fa'adalak. He created you, fashioned you, and justly proportioned you. Fi ayyi suratin ma sha'a rakkabak. In whatever form he willed, he put you. So therefore someone says, Sayyidina, God says that we fashioned you, we molded you. Yes, if someone is born with a lip, or there's an issue with another part of the body where they can't close it like others, we may look at biological issues in the family, some sort of genetic issue that came about from some issue. But the reality is that someone will ask a question that, look, if God's created us perfect, how dare we change God's creation? I think it makes sense. I think one of the clearest ayahs on this issue in Surah 40 of the Quran, Surah 40, my dear brothers and sisters at home, may God bless all of you for building your relationship with the Quran. Surah 40, verse number 64 of the Holy Quran, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this ayah, and it's very clear again. Allahu alladhi ja'ala lakumul arda qararan was sama'a bina'an wa sawwarakum fa ahsana suwarakum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who made for you the earth to stay and the heaven a canopy and shaped you and made goodly your forms. Yani, when the Quran says something like فَأَحْسَنَ صُوَرَكُمْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying your form is the best of form. If you were created, for example, with breast that size, that's what you stay with. If you were created, for example, with, let's say, another part of the body where you wish it was enhanced, and you have the ability now. Person goes straight to Iran or to Turkey, and they're able to change whatever they want. Even to the extent I heard recently in America, there's a surgery to make you taller, where you could grow 3 inches taller. How? They break the kneecap, they break the ankle, they break, what's left? You're going to break everything. What's the point? Also, I go 3 inches. For some people, those 3 inches, $100,000, they'll pay for it straight away. Well, a Muslim looks at these ayahs and they're like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me in the best forms. No, I'm not going to change anything. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me 5'6", I'm going to remain 5'6". He created me 6'4", I'm 6'4". If Allah created me with this particular chest size, that's my chest size. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me, for example, with this particular nose size, that's my nose size. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me with, I'm not going to change a single thing. If my, for example, lips are like this, I'm not going to add it and look like, for example, someone who's had their lips filled. So you'll have a lot of people who these ayahs, and in particular, one ayah, one particular verse of the Quran. Because this verse is a verse where Shaitan says, I'm the one who's going to make you all change your looks. This verse, Shaitan, in Surah 4, verse 119. Shaitan is blatant. That, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reach a level where I'm going to command you to do things. I'm going to give you hope on certain things that you'll never ever reach. And I'm also going to make you change the creation of God. This one ayah, my dear brothers and sisters at home, is the main ayah that is used by certain Muslim schools. Certain, underline, certain. By certain Muslim schools to say that it is haram for a person to beautify themselves. Notice I say that they said it's haram to beautify. Why? Because virtually all Muslim schools say it is not haram for a person to have corrective surgery. Because at the end of the day, Islam doesn't want to occasion harm. So they say that there is no problem at all if you find that there is an abnormality, maybe not in your eyes, and every mother sees her child looking like a beautiful Bambi. But of course, in the eyes of people out there, there may be people who might turn around to you. It's difficult. I'm telling you, it's so difficult. When even I myself have been to certain places where I've seen people who've needed, I think they call it maxillofacial surgery or something along that, where you correct the whole of the facial structure, where the jaw and the teeth and everything connected, all of it has to be corrected. It's hard for those kids when everyone's staring at them in the road. It's hard. And so every school in Islam believes that, you know what, this procedure, maybe something from Allah's original creation, something went wrong in the pregnancy, there was some issue from generations or genetics, but you can bring it back to looking to what is seen as being normal. But no chance in terms of beautification. No chance. And this is a very important point. Why no chance? You see, someone might ask the question, say, no, wait, how would they allow for corrective procedure and not allow for beautification? I don't think they allow for corrective procedure because of an ayah in the Quran. Because most of the scholars who will discuss that will say, listen, we don't have any evidence that there was, for example, a lip transplant, hair transplant, breast transplant, backside transplant, transplant of the other areas of the body. We don't have any evidence of this in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So you say, then how you reach a ruling? Some schools might reach a ruling by saying, I don't know, ibaha, permissible if there's nothing written on it, which clearly says that it's prohibited, then the principle of permissibility emerges. Other schools might say Islam as a religion shouldn't occasion harm. And if this person continuously is facing harm from people because of the way that they look, then they're allowed that corrective procedure. Others say that in the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family, I think his name was Afjar. Afjar's grandfather, Afjar ibn al-Aswad's grandfather, had his nose cut off in the battle of, I think it was in the Kulab battles, Kulab wars. His nose was completely chopped off by some sword. Okay? Now, in that time, how do they give him a new nose? Or how do they do a nose or rhinoplasty or any of these trusts? How do they do it? What do you do at that time? Hazard a guess? Yeah, cover it. With what? They covered it, according to narrations which I remember reading, they covered it with silver. So they put silver there. But the problem with silver is that it can also corrode. And there could be a foul smell that comes out. And this poor man was walking around with what looked like a shiny nose. But then that nose slowly started to evoke some sort of smell. And what began to happen was that this man was very hurt by what was going on, but that there was no problem with them having that corrective surgery on the nose. Because of what? Had the Prophet, peace be upon him, his family said that there was a problem, then it would have been a problem forever. But because it brings embarrassment, hence you have some schools in Islam that said, if it is a procedure that is helping someone alleviate a particular aberration or defect, then that's allowed on the basis of what happened, for example, with Afjar ibn al-Aswad, or on the basis of a principle, because many of them could not give you a particular incident where they'll say that Sahabi so-and-so went to the operating theater and there was a Botox done for Sahabi so-and-so. So they allow it for procedures which are corrective, but they don't allow it in terms of non-Shia. Non-Shia, in the majority of cases, do not allow plastic cosmetic surgery for beautification purposes, on the basis of Surah 4, verse 119 of the Quran. You know, in Surah 4, verse 119, from about verse 117 onwards, we're introduced to Satan, and we're introduced to the way that Satan rebels, and how Satan in his rebellion wants to make a point that, you know what, you could say that I'm rebellious, I don't have a problem with that, but I'll tell you something. Do you know what I'm going to do to mankind? You said Adam's greater than me, yeah? And that I had to prostrate to Adam. You know what I'm going to show you? I'm going to show you how the sons of Adam are just going to become a mess. Even that body you've given them, they're going to mess it up completely. And look at the verse 119. Of course, in verse 118, God does la'nat on shaitan, la'anahu Allah, just in case someone says, well, why do people do la'na? Well, the Quran is saying la'anahu Allah. You know, so he's withdrawn his mercy from him. Shaitan then says, most certainly, I'm going to take a share of your creation. Yes? وَقَالَ لَأَتَّخِذَنَّ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ نَصِيبًا مَفْرُوضًا. Then he begins to explain what he's going to do to us. And in the eyes of some, Satan was successful. Because look what he says. وَلَأُضِلَّنَّكُمْ. First thing, I'll lead this human being astray. وَلَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ. And I'm going to put within them hope and desires. وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ. And what else am I going to do? I'm going to order them. فَلَيُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ. They shall certainly cut the ears of the cattle. فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. And I will command them that they shall change the creation of Allah. Botox, haram. Nose surgery, haram. Hair transplant, haram. Stomach lining, stomach changing, stomach sucking, haram. Breast enhancement, haram. Enlarging breast, haram. Backside, haram. Because what? Because shaitan said that I'm going to do what? What are they going to do? فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. They're going to change the creation of Allah. Allah created you with that look. How could you go to Iran and Turkey and London and New York and LA and change what Allah gave you? Allah, that was the face that He gave you. Suddenly, you've changed the nose shape, you've changed the lip shape, you've changed the jawline, you've changed the cheekbone, you've changed the this, you've changed the that. How could you do that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, shaitan has promised, I'm going to order them. I'm going to give them false hopes and promises, and I'm going to guide them to cutting the animals, slitting them, and to change the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, our brothers in Islam who are not Shia, which means that some of my Sunni brothers and sisters who are watching at home are probably thinking either that these Shia have it easy, or I'm going to convert, just joking, or If I've got Botox done, I've got fillers done, I've got nose job done, because we know that there's certain countries in the Middle East we've mentioned already who are not majority Shia countries, but you know that there's a lot of surgery happening. You have royal families in the Middle East who'll fly doctors from the US on a private jet so that the whole thing is changed. But how could you? Because your madhab is saying that this ayah of the Quran means that you're not allowed to do this. So someone might turn around and say, what's the loophole if I'm not Shia? Because for Shia, all of these surgeries are allowed. Someone says, hold on. Do you Shia have a different Quran? Yasser, do you have a different Quran from the one I'm reading? Okay. You Shia making things up again? You Shia, this is another rumor I'm going to bring out against you. Because we've already said that you worship Ali and that you, and so on and so on. You have a different Quran. And now you're going to go against the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Why do the Shia jurists allow cosmetic surgery for both corrective and beautifying? Why do they allow it? And I'm sure there's some of you at home who are watching whose businesses rely on this, and you're like, thank God said Ammar allowed it, otherwise the businesses would be in trouble. Mind you, Muslims are very good at picking and choosing what they want from the Quran. If something affects their life in the Quran for good, they'll say, look, it's in the Quran. And if it affects their life for bad in the Quran, they're like, no, I don't take that interpretation. Why do the Shia allow all of these surgeries? Now, by the way, someone at home might turn around and say, Ammar Nakshawani is encouraging our youth to go and do this. Listen, what's allowed doesn't mean it's wajib. True? Doesn't mean it's wajib. And nor do we necessarily want to fall in that trap where that image, which turns out to be photoshopped, is what I want to be. Because believe you me, it's all about lighting this world. Look at me. With lighting, I look all right. Why would the Shia not look at this ayah and say enough? Why? Well, because of a couple of reasons. First reason is that this ayah refers to the Jahiliyyah practices which Shaitan affected the Arabs to do. What is the verse that explains this ayah? Surah 5 verse 103. Let's go there. Surah 5 verse 103 explains this ayah to me. Because in Surah 5 verse 103 of the Quran, that ayah in Surah 4 verse 119, what did it say? That he will make people slit the catchels. Yeah, look at this ayah, verse 103 of Surah 5, my dear brothers and sisters. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ma ja'ala Allahu min bahiratin wala sa'ibatin wala wasilatin wala hamin. ولكن الذين كفروا يفترون على الله الكذب وأكثرهم لا يعقلون. Can someone explain to me this verse at home, please? What's bahira? What's sa'iba? What's wasila? What's ham? We don't really hear those names regularly in our lives, do we? No. So what's this verse about? You remember 4119 said that they will cut the cattle? These are animals which the Arabs used to have a particular superstition with because of Shaitan. Because of Shaitan, he began to teach some of them. For example, Bahira. Bahira is an animal that gives birth to 5 offspring. If the 5th one's a female, what do? You slit the ears of that animal. Baba Shino slit the ears of the animal. Shaitan said, what am I going to do? In verse number 119 of Surah 4, he said, فَلَا يُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ Adhan al-an'am is what? Is the ears of the cattle. Here it says, the bahira. God has not ordained that you do a bahira. What's a bahira? An animal, for example, that has given birth to 5 offspring. If the 5th is a female, you cut the ears. Baba, what is this? It's ridiculous. What's a sa'iba? If it gives birth, an animal, to 12, you have to let it go. You can't touch it. It can wander around wherever it wants. What is a wasila? A lamb, for example, gives birth 7 times. You can't kill that lamb ever again. What is a ham? A ham is an animal which the Arabs used to say, if it looks after 10 females, it's a male animal. If it looks after 10 females, then what do? You leave that animal alone. It's a blessed animal. So some of those animals, they'll slit their ears. Some of them, they'll put a mark on them saying that don't touch, don't take milk from. That other ayah wasn't saying, according to Shi'ism, that shaitan was going to make us change all the creation. It said the cattle, meaning that the Arabs had certain superstitions where they would cut the ears of the animals, for example. Al-adhan, you see this ears that we have, they would come and they would cut the ears of the animal. Therefore, on that basis, we say don't just look at an ayah and do what? And say that there is itlaq, unrestricted. An ayah can be muqayyad, restricted, or an ayah can be unrestricted. Someone says, what do you mean an ayah can be restricted or unrestricted? There may be an ayah like this where a person says, you see, Allah has restricted that you can't change the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when we look at this ayah, we look at it and we say that there may be certain exceptions. In Arabic, we have an ayah that is mutlaq or an ayah that is muqayyad. An ayah that's mutlaq, unrestricted. An ayah that's muqayyad is restricted. You may find somebody here who says that you see from this one verse, it says you can't change the creation of Allah in Surah 4 verse 119. We say, hold on a minute. Then how is it that we, for example, see things around us where we've changed the creation of Allah? Are you allowed to trim some hair on your body? Yes, but you're changing the creation of Allah. Are you allowed to cut your nails? But you're changing the creation of Allah. Are you allowed to build bridges? But you're changing the creation of Allah. Are you allowed to build, for example, or dig wells on the earth? But how? You're changing the creation of Allah. Are you allowed to build dams? But you're changing the creation of Allah. Are you allowed to put henna to dye your beard? But you're changing the creation of Allah. It meant that a person could not say this verse absolutely means, in the Shia opinion, that a person cannot have beautification surgery or corrective procedure, because the ayah refers to those who were having ignorant, superstitious beliefs regarding their animals, which was explained by which ayah? Surah 5 verse 103. Correct? Ham, wasila, bahira, and so on and so forth. So therefore, for us in the Shia school, if a person cannot change the creation of Allah, and this, by the way, takes us on to organ donation and genetic engineering, because all of these discussions overlap on each other. Can we donate our organs? You can't, because you're opening a body Allah's given you. But then if we can't change Allah's creation, how comes when it came to building dams, building tunnels in certain particular natural creations of God, how comes all those things are allowed? Why doesn't someone say, how dare you change Allah's creation? There are many things around us which show that there is an unrestriction. Which show what? Which show that there are exceptions to the rule. Even non-Shia, when it comes to their explanation of why a person can have corrective surgery, even though corrective surgery may entail certain jurisprudential things being broken. For example, let's say, for example, it may entail having a female look at your private area or your awrah. They'll say because Islamic law has exceptions. And so, the same way Allah may allow you to eat pork when it's normally haram, but He allows you if you're about to die, or drink alcohol if you're thirsty and about to die, there could be exceptions here. Likewise for us. That when you look at this ayah and you say, and I'm going to change the creation of Allah, yes, He did it. He made people cut certain parts of the bodies of animals. But who said that that means that this ayah is restricted and there is absolutely no possibility that one could look at it in an unrestrictive manner? And so for us in the Shia school, are we allowed to have plastic, cosmetic, whatever type surgery? Is it allowed? Someone says, Sayyidina, only for corrective procedure? No, even for beautification. If someone out there now, for example, wants to have their breasts enhanced to a size which is smaller or to a size which is bigger. Because you might have somebody who says, I want reduction. I don't want enhancement. You may have others. As long as we see certain principles of jurisprudence that are not broken. Everybody bear with me on this point. If a lady is living in Iran, or you are living in London, and you want to go to Iran for, let's say, breast surgery. And there's this top doctor in Iran. Top doctor. Doctor, what shall we call the doctor? We call him Dr. Reza, for example. A top doctor in Iran, you want breast surgery. And you have to go to see Dr. Reza. And Dr. Reza in Iran is seeing so many of these. You walk in and he says to you, sit in front of me. Take your top off. And he begins to actually feel your chest. You're saying, but Sayyidina, you said beautification's allowed. I didn't say you break the other laws. Because the laws of mahram and na mahram still apply. And the laws of wala taqrabu zina still apply. Someone says, what are you talking about? Wala taqrabu zina. The Quran didn't say don't commit adultery. It said don't approach or go near. I remember someone saying that a doctor who has to do these surgeries 10, 15, 20 a day, it doesn't have any feelings anymore. Man is man. Man is man. Because someone might turn around to me and say, Sayyidina, you know people who are in male relationships or female relationships, can they be like my hairdresser or my plastic surgeon because they are male, they are engaged in a male relationship, they have feelings for males? There are people who are bisexual. They say I'm male, or I could change. I can feel the female as well. On the contrary, if you have people like that, you say, for example, someone says to you that I am in a female relationship, so someone's like, okay, then there's no problem for me. You may even have to wear a scarf from some of these. But when you come back, let's come back. A doctor, male, you want your backside, breast, chest, whatever it is, those areas are not the normal areas that someone would see, number one. Number two, you have to have a female who conducts all of this, no male. Someone says, where can a male conduct, for example? A male, if we look at corrective, for example, if, for example, there is a difficulty, even life or death situation, it can work both ways. A doctor male can look after a female male. A male, for example, somebody wants something done on their face. And of course, these examples, my dear sister, I can apply the other way for when the men are getting it as well. But say, for example, a male, you want something done on your lips. According to many scholars, if there's a barrier like a cloth that they're wearing or gloves or whatever, and that if they are going to touch the face, because the face is that which is made apparent. You know, it's normal in many cases in the world that we live in today that the male will see the face of the female. So if he's going to come and he's going to touch your face, if there's a barrier of a form of clothing, then that is allowed, as long as there isn't any look which can take you out of the boundaries of that proper relationship. Someone says, how about, for example, when you're telling me about these surgeries, can I therefore have parts of my stomach completely taken out? Yes, you can. Okay, I'm a female, but there's this top male doctor, Sayyidina. You don't understand. He's the greatest doctor ever to have lived. But he's a male and I need him to do it. No, you don't need him to do it. He cannot do it unless you taking whatever in your stomach out is a matter of danger for you. Then there is no issue there. But if it's not danger, it's just like, you know what, I want it to look a bit more toned. Or post-pregnancy, it's not haram for you to have these surgeries, but it would have to be a female who conducts these surgeries. Someone else is saying, no, okay, you've shown in the Quran that there are exceptions and that everything has its context. How about if I want to put, for example, extra eyelashes or like an extension on my lashes? Does that affect wudu, for example? Because some of these last for 7 days, some of them last for a month. Yes, wudu, ghusl are all affected by these things. And number two, if this is a form of zina, which is bringing other attraction, for example, then you find that at the same time, it is not allowed. Just because Shia law allowed for some of these things didn't mean that there was no limit on them. But if someone's husband at home, for example, now, and their wife wants to do this surgery, in some cases, the husband might turn around and say, I like you the way you are. But in other cases, if you're always going to be praising others and not your missus, and when your missus wants to do this surgery, you're like, no, what was surgery? We don't do these things. That's hypocritical. Interesting that also within Shi'ism, as many people always ask me about tattoos, you'll find that other schools in Islam, again, adamant, he changed the look of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why within the Shia wouldn't be that strict? Not only because we looked at the context of the ayah, but just because you won't find, for example, a scholar like Ayatollah Sistani coming outright and saying haram, doesn't mean that it's something that someone has to do. At the end of the day, that which is permissible does not mean it is wajib. And so a person has to think of their social circumstances, their surroundings. Now us in Iraq, even you look at some of our grandmothers or aunties, they used to have a sort of dagga or a sort of particular tattoo. You know, our fathers may have had a kinky feeling for such things where they used to enjoy, like, for example, seeing a triangle on your mum's forehead, on your grandma's forehead, and you're looking at it as a particular dagga. So everyone's had certain periods where such a thing may have been allowed. But it's interesting that even within Shi'ism, there is still restrictions where, for example, can a person put Allah's name or the Prophet's name or the Quran? No. Why? Because that body also goes into states of impurity, for example. And you go into Ajalakum Allah, the bathroom, and so on and so forth. And even for ladies, some might say, well, why can't I have it? Well, it may be a case in Shia law that a lady can have, but if it's in a place where those who aren't mahram to her can see her, especially for those who don't wear hijab, and may find in some cases some who don't wear hijab are very modest, but some who don't wear hijab wear t-shirts, and you have that again, it's a problem when it comes to the scarf or the veiling. So you found that someone might say, Sayyidina, my teeth, for example, I want to work on my teeth. It's neither necessarily corrective, nor is it beautification in every sense, and I would say in most cases probably it is, but not in every sense. And it's very interesting that in non-Shia schools, there are discussions about how you can't work on your teeth for beautification. Very interesting. Because they say that Arab ladies, I couldn't believe this when I read this, but they say Arab ladies, they used to want to have their teeth a bit separated, which I couldn't believe. Like, can you imagine if, I'm just trying to think, like, it's unbelievable, but they used to actually see that as something. And I don't necessarily want to look at it in a bad way, because there may be people who have this within them, but you have today braces, for example. And many Muslims wear braces. For some reason, that's not changing the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many Muslim ladies who are not Shia also do their eyebrows, but for some reason, that's not changing the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But anyway, the Arabs, some ulama actually said, this is very interesting, some ulama actually said that you cannot do it because we have a hadith. Yeah, but those Arab ladies, what did they say? They said that the ladies who are known as selling their bodies used to do these things. Okay, but if a lady doesn't sell her body, why would you put her in the same category as that fajira, for example, living at that time? Then there were some ulama, very interesting. Some ulama spoke about tadlis. Tadlis, for example, is this idea that you may not give the real of what is the original, where you change it a bit. And so some ulama never allowed cosmetic surgery for beautification because they're like, you're not telling the guy exactly how you looked. This is very interesting. And it's not Shia, it's many non-Shia. I think there's certain non-Shia at home whose aqidah may have been, and now that they have things which suit them, their aqidah has gone stronger. Whereas if you mention Amir al-Mu'minin Fatima Zahra, then there's always billions of question marks. Anyway, there's some ulama who said, in non-Shia schools, you can't do this beautification surgery because you might end up hiding something that the husband doesn't know. So if a person's really hairy, there's some people who are really hairy. They go and get that surgery done. When they get married, their missus, for example, doesn't know that they were that hairy. And later that she sees the kids and she's like, you should have told me you're that hairy. Look at our kid. He looks like he's got a carpet on his back. Or, for example, a girl who gets a nose job before getting married, the husband turns around. Listen, for us as Shia, there's no problems. But I'm just saying in other schools in Islam, they look at the concept of tadlis that you got to tell the husband that you got that nose job because later on, the husband might turn around and say, well, where did our kids look like that from? Because so there are some who have looked at certain principles. But for us as Shia, as long as a person observes the laws of jurisprudence, then there is no problem them beautifying themselves. Make sure that the mahramiyya laws are all observed. And while all that is done, yes, it's not wajib. And yes, we may not want to fall into the trap of a world where it's all about vanity, looks, narcissism, and ego. But the reality is within our legal system, it remains a legal system where ijtihad, ibaha, and other principles allow for a person to continuously adapt. Thank you all for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Karbala, once a barren land, a land once uninhabited. Yet today millions assemble and congregate in it. But why? A holy trail left from Medina and mark the journey of oblation, submission and sacrifice. The focal point of hearts set a journey towards this land. Imam Hussein TV is excited and honored to be inviting you to an opportunity like no other. For many of you who have visited Karbala, you would have seen the building works around the front of Imam Hussein's shrine. The Haram is now expanding and currently Tell al-Zainabiyya Sanctorium is being recreated. With the new plans and developments, Imam Hussein Media Group is relocating to the Dar al-Sajjad building on Qibla Street, one of the main roads that leads to the front of the holy shrines of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Our building will only be 150 meters away from the holy shrine of Aba Abdullah. This new building is to be the new headquarters for the Imam Hussein Media Group, taking up 200 square meters. The purchase of just the land alone in 2012 was a total of over $2.2 million. The 11-story building overlooks the holy sites of the sacred tents of Imam al-Hussein, Bain al-Haramain, and the two holy domes of Imam Hussein and his brother Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhum as-salam. The building will consist of 11 floors and a basement. The basement will be dedicated to serving the blessed pilgrims visiting the holy city of Karbala and will hold an equipment storage and repair facility. The ground floor of the building will hold a Husayniyah, which will be open all year round to hold majalis and celebrations. The first floor will have a built-in amphitheatre seating 200 people. It will be used to premiere certain shows and documentaries, as well as hosting international conferences and seminars. The second floor will hold an equipment storage and repair facility. The third floor will host our Farsi channel, Imam Hussein TV1. The channel requires office space, meeting rooms, as well as editorial suites to create new material for your viewing. The fourth floor will host our Arabic channel, Imam Hussein TV2. The fifth floor will host our English channel and our Urdu channel. This is where all post-production will happen. The sixth floor will host our Azeri channel, Az-Zahra TV, and our news channel, Shia Waves News. The channels require office space, meeting rooms, as well as editorial suites to help plan, create, and manage different stages of production to bring you the latest news affecting the Shia community globally. The 7th and 8th floors will be split into two parts. The majority of both floors will be home to the Al Mukhayyam studios. This space will hold two visual studios overlooking the holy shrines and will be used to have live broadcasts and pre-recorded filming sets. A small section of the double-floored studio will be the control room, which is where the technicians record, mix, edit and televise live broadcasting. The 9th and 10th floors will also be split into two parts. The majority of these floors will be home to the Bab al-Qibla studios. This large-sized studio will include window backdrops showing the holy shrines of Imam Hussein and Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhum salam. This will be used by all channels when holding ziyarah and special programs to celebrate or commemorate the Ahlul Bayt. A small section of the double-floored studio will be the control room, which will also be used for technicians to record, mix, edit and televise live broadcasting. Here's where you can help. Many of us make investments for the future to see a return. Our hereafter is our real future. And here is an investment opportunity like no other. It's costing Imam Hussein Media Group $700 per square meter to construct and decorate the building. The $700 will account for cement to bricks, from iron beams to cabling, and even plastering, painting and tiling. You can donate to our project and receive blessings and rewards with every single second any production is being created in this building. Whether we are script writing, filming, editing or broadcasting a live show on the day of Arba'een, your donation will raise blessings and rewards for the hereafter. But I'm sure you're asking yourselves, why do we need such a building? Since its inception, Imam Hussein Media Group has grown to a multilingual and internationally recognized station. Our sole duty is to provide an interactive platform to teach people the message of the Ahlul Bayt. The new building will give each channel their own space and equipment to work effectively and efficiently. With more space, each department will have ample time and freedom to be able to create more interesting and valuable content to bring you all closer to the Ahlul Bayt. In today's world, falsehood is abundant, and through Imam Hussein TV, we have the ability to show people the truth. It was once the wealth of Sayyidah Khadija that pushed forward the message of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. And today, we ask you to help us push the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. All that is required is just over $900,000 to finalize the total project. And with so many lovers of Imam Hussein, and with so many contributions from these lovers, we are sure we can reach our goal. Invest in the future of your community. Invest in your afterlife. And invest in the legacy of your Imam. Imam Hussein TV, your gateway to Karbala.